Model Making Guru is sponsored by emodels.co.uk, your one-stop shop for all your model making needs. emodels.co.uk. Make something awesome. Hey everyone, it's Foxx from Model Making Guru here. Hello, and welcome to the next part of our Warhammer Conquest Partwork build project. Now, in this episode, before we crack on with parts 1 to 4, which will be the next episode, there are still some little bits of information that I need to dissemble to your brains. And those are how to do the building part, because you'll need that, and also something they don't cover in the magazines, how to do priming and what priming is. So without further ado, let me go to all the video footage that I've already recorded. At this point in time, I'm still waiting for part 4 to arrive, so everything's a bit jumbly. So I'll now hand you over to the video that I recorded yesterday, which is how to build and what priming is and how to do it. Okay, so let's crack on. The first thing you need to do is construction, whichever magazine you're working on. Now, as I said before, this is all being kind of filmed out of sync, as it were, so I've kind of already assembled and primed the guys from the first 3 issues because I wasn't going to be filming this. So yeah, there's this little crowd of dudes here. Now I will explain primer later on. Don't panic. And the magazine doesn't tell you about primer, but it's a very important step you'll need to do. So let me put these guys over here. Right, so assembly. Now I do happen to have here, this isn't one that comes with the magazine, but this is one I got from my local Warhammer store. So what I'll do is I'll use this to show you how to do construction. Now the figures that come in the magazines are similar to this one. This is from my store, like I said. They're similar to this in that they're called easy build figures. Traditionally, Games Workshop figures have separate torso and legs and more posable arms and guns, so you can mix and match them and put them in different poses. The ones we'll be getting with our magazines are what are called the fixed pose or single pose figures. They're easy build, they've just got one static pose. So the torso and the legs are all together, you plonk the arms in, you plonk everything together and stick it on the base. This is the similar kind of thing, it's an easy build figure. So it's aimed at the beginner, you don't need to use glue, but you might find it useful occasionally. This is where you need to follow the steps in the magazine. All the parts on the sprue is the frame that the parts come on, and they're all numbered, so part 3, part 6, part 5, part 1. Follow the steps in the magazine, it will give you the number for each part. You simply need to get each part off the sprue. Now what you want to do is get the part, you can see here, you need to be careful because some of these parts have little pegs where bits will attach, and some have little pegs that are just attached straight to the piece itself. So where there's a peg, you need to get your nippers with the flat side against the model. Get your nippers, get it right up to the edge. Oops, not that close. Fumble, and just snip. Very gently, you don't have to be harsh. Where your nippers go up to the piece itself, and there's no little sort of peg or anything like that, what you can do is, if you've got very good nippers like these, like my God hands, you can actually go right up to the piece and nip. If you're using something like the Citadel Big Boys, or the ones that you get with the magazine, they're a little more harsh and violent than these God hands. So for those where you've got nothing between the piece here, the nub, and the model itself, just leave a little bit on the model and just snip. If you go right up to the plastic, then you may actually just make a gouge or damage to the piece of the model itself. So I can go right close to it because I'm using these God hands. There are also some other very good ones out there, but if you're using the Games Workshop ones or ones you got from the art store, just leave a little bit of plastic behind, just because you don't want to gouge the plastic. But if you have had to go right close, what you want to do is get your clippers. I'll show you with the Games Workshop ones. Again, these aren't the ones you get with the magazine, but now this is off and there's no stress involved, you can go a bit closer and just nip them right up to the model. The reason you can't do it earlier is because when you're pulling it off the sprue, it might damage this piece of plastic, but once it's off there, you can just snip it. You can go right up close. There'll be a little tiny bit left. If there is a little chunk left there, you can sand it down, but much quicker is just to get your knife and very, very carefully remove this. Now I do this towards myself like this, but I know what I'm doing. If you're a younger builder, you might want to get a grown-up to do this for you. Or if you're not experienced, do it away from yourself. I can't actually do it away from myself because I suck at it. So I'm doing it towards myself, but what you can do is just shave it down very gently. I'm not putting any pressure on, and I'm just running it along the surface just to shave away any plastic that's sticking up off the edge, just a little bit. Next, it is another tool that you should have got with, I think you'll get it with issue 1, which is your seam line removal tool. Now it won't look like this, it'll look like that, because you'll get this bit, you don't get the whole handle. This is just if you go to the Warhammer store and buy it. It's the seam line removal tool. This is the best tool you will ever use for model making, and what this is designed for is for things like this, where there's a little bit of nub left over, but it's not sticking up massively, it's just a little bit visible. What you can do is get your seam line removal tool. It's not sharp at all, it's not flexible. Get it 45 degrees to the edge here and just run it along and down, and that will slowly smooth off that surface to get rid of that little nub mark where the frame was. Now you can still see a little bit of a light colour where the discoloration is. That doesn't matter. If you can see a different colour, that's fine. The important bit is that when you run your thumb over it, you can't feel it. Now you can also use this tool for getting rid of seam lines. So for example, let's find one. I bet there isn't one on here now. There we go. On this leg here, you'll see there's a seam line which runs down there and then down that part of the leg. It actually runs down here as well, but this is moulded in to look like part of the armour, so that's alright. But here you've got this seam line here. Now this is an inevitable part of the moulding process. The models are made by moulding 2 bits of plastic together, and you get a little bit of squidge down the middle. That's fine. This is what this is designed for. All you do is the same as you've just done a minute ago. Just gently hold it at 45 degrees and run it along that seam, and it will magically vanish. Now I'm not putting on any pressure at all. I'm just running it across the surface at 45 degrees, and the seam line is pretty much gone. Now the beauty of this seam line removal tool, you could do that with a blade, with a hobby knife blade, and just run the blade along like that. The difficulty with the hobby knife blade is that this blade is flexible, it bends. So when you run it across the surface like that, it's going to skitter and jump, and you can scratch and gouge the surface. This thing doesn't flex, it's not flexible at all. So this is going to leave a nice smooth surface. So all you need to do is get all the parts off the sprue. If needed, just trim away any nubs that are sticking up, and then just get your seam line removal tool and clean up any seam lines. You can also use it to smooth off this round pauldron. See how I'm getting rid of the nub, and I'm also rounding it all off, and I'm getting rid of the seam line. It doesn't leave any scratches in the surface. I love this. Is the best tool you'll ever get. Now there is one other thing you can do, and this is what I like to do when you've done all that. What I like to do, just to make everything nice and smooth, because it is nice and smooth where you've used the seam line tool, but it's not perfectly smooth. I just get myself some medium sanding sponge and I just run it across like that, and it just smooths it off even more and makes it nice and smooth, and you can't see any scratches, gets rid of any little tiny scratches, ready for primer. So what's next? We'll get the rest of the bits off and then we'll assemble this guy. And remember, this isn't a guy from the magazine, but it just gives you the idea of how to build. So I'll get this prepped and the other parts and we'll get him assembled. Okay, so here are all the parts. Now I've not taken time to clean all the nubs and things off. You can see they've still got nubs on there, because this is just a test figure. It's not part of the actual proper build itself. I'm not really fussed if this is cleaned up. I'm just going to use it as a test pig once it's done anyway, so don't worry that I've not cleaned all the nubs off. So what do we do? Well, this is a standard easy build figure. So we need the front torso, the front of him. We need the head, the bonds, which I really like the heads on these Primaris Marines. That simply goes in there like that. Lock it in place. Now you will, if you watch the videos on the YouTube channel, they seem to put all this together dead easily, dead quickly, but I will tell you right now, it's a real challenge to get the back of the torso on without the head falling off. This is my third take. So you get the back of the torso, 2 pegs there, 2 holes inside him, and you just line that up, and together it goes. There we go. But I'll show you an advanced technique. Advanced technique. If you've got 2 parts to go together, let's say a peg has to go into this hole and it's a very, very tight fit, or you don't want it to be such a tight fit, get your craft knife, get it in the hole and just run it round the inside a little bit like that, and that will widen the hole a little tiny bit. Your peg will now fit a little bit easier. Okay, so we've got that bit together. Next we need to put on the arms. So this arm, now this might not fit because I'm not trimmed that nub off, but again, this is just a test figure, it's not that important. Peg, hole, in you go. Done. This one is the gun. Peg on the arm, hole up there, peg on the arm, hole in the gun, and that should just lock in there like that. Now these can be tricky because you've got to get them lined up. But there you go, once you're in, you're in. Now, that gun looks a bit lame. Look at the barrel on that gun, it's a bit lame. Let me show you another advanced technique. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to drill out this gun barrel because that looks a bit rubbish, it's just flat. So there's two things you'll need. You'll need your little metal file just to smooth it off, and you'll need a pin vise. Now this is the Citadel one, of course it's the Citadel one, it's labelled somewhere, but you don't need to use the Citadel one. It's just the handy thing with the Citadel one is the 3 bits that come with it. The smallest bit is the perfect size for a bolter barrel like that. But any old, you can get these from your hobby shop. They come with a range of different size drill bits. It's just simply a drill bit that goes in the end, and you can pop the drill bit in and out. Where's it gone? Where's it gone? You can pop the drill bit in and out into the chuck there, and you can swap out different sizes. Now, like I say, if you're using the Games Workshop one, the Warhammer Store one, it's the smallest bit that comes in the pack. So what do we want to do? First thing you want to do is just very, very gently file down the end. If there's been a nub there, you just want to file that smooth. See, that's all it takes. Now what you can do, and you want to be very, very careful with this, get your knife blade, or a pin will do, and as best you can, make a little tiny mark in the centre, where you think the centre is of the gun barrel. Now it's quite difficult to do, especially when you're on camera, but it's just to make a pilot mark for your drill bit. There we go, tiny little hole. And then all you need to do is get your pin vise with its bit on there, and this is very hard to do on camera, I can assure you. Get your pin vise and just very gently start drilling. You don't need to go far, just go a little bit in, keep it straight and parallel to the barrel. And there we have a nice drilled barrel. Now what you can do as well, because these bolters have, it's like a muzzle brake, they have side bits on the side, and again this is the smallest drill bit that comes with the Citadel one. You don't get this with the magazine, you have to go and buy this. It's exactly the right size for those side vents. So just pop it through there and through the other side, and now you have a beautifully drilled front and side holes in your barrel. So there we go, gun barrel all drilled. So we'll get the arm back on again. I find it easy to put the hand in there first and then put the arm peg in. There we go, that's him. Stick his backpack on, peg, hole. Quite a tight fit. Remember, if you wanted it to be less of a tight fit, you could just drill out the whole little bit with your blade. And then for these guys, now if you get the ones in the magazines, they have a bar across the feet and a slot in the base. They're called slot bases or slotter bases. This is just 2 pegs, but similar principle. Stick them on the base, you are done. Now, when you do the ones from the magazine, they're pretty much the same as this, except you may find that some of the arms don't quite fit very well. They're not quite as good a fit. Some of them are a bit hokey and ropey around the edges. I found some of the pegs don't quite go into the hole very well. Don't panic, it's very easy to fix. This is where your friend glue can come in. What I'm going to do, if you do find that, for example, an arm won't go on the figure, all you do is snip the peg off. There you go. You can put that arm on there, just in place, ready. And what I might like to do is, quite simply, get a touch of glue, get it on there ready, get this arm in place, where I want it, So it goes into the hole, put it down so it's in, and then just run the glue into the gap. And that's why to me extra thin is so good, because you can do that. That will now be sucked into the gap and it'll melt the plastic together and it'll weld that part into place. So that's permanently fixed. Now again, you don't have to do this, and if you want to do this you can just use the glue that Games Workshop send you. However, they send you polystyrene cement, and polystyrene cement is fine, it's just a bit thick and gloopy. And if you say put it here and then push two pieces together and it splooges out, it's going to be messy and it's going to make a mess and a blob of glue that sticks out. It's hard to control how much. So if you can get yourself some from any like model store, Hobbycraft sell it I think, if you're in the UK, or you can order it online. My sponsors are eModels, emodels.co.uk. The sticker, I'm pointing to the sticker up there but you can't see it. You can buy it from them. It's just a really nice glue because you can run it between gaps rather than having to put big blobs everywhere. But that's, I say, it's unlikely it's going to get many of those, but I did find the Death Guard guys went together really well, but the Space Marine guys, some of the arms are a bit reluctant to go on, so you may have some issues, and if you do, you can just snip off the pegs and glue them into place. So when you've done that, go and reel the rest, and you should have a big swath of guys from all the issues. You should have all these dudes. Now, why are these black? Well, this is the next step, because next we need to start the painting. And I've done something that the magazine doesn't tell you to do. I've applied a coat of primer. Let's go and talk about that. Now, there's two things that they do wrong in issue 1 of the magazine when you start the painting. First of all, they get you to use that horrible brush they send with you. They shouldn't. Oh, that brush is horrible. Burn it. Just burn it. It's rubbish. Second of all, they get you to paint the Macragge blue paint directly onto the bare plastic figure. Now, like I said, this has been primed. These are normally blue and green. They get you to paint directly on the figure. This is a big no-no when it comes to making models of any kind, not least of all models that you're going to be handling regularly because you're going to be playing games with them. The last thing you want to do is to put paint on bare plastic. Why? Because paints are not designed to grip to bare plastic. That's what primers are for. So let me give you a primer on primer. you see what I did there with the primer? So what is a primer? Well, quite simply, a primer is something that you apply to the plastic directly, and it forms an interface between the plastic and the paint. Like I said, the paint won't really grip to the plastic. A primer, in one way or another, will bond itself to the plastic. Some primers will chemically etch themselves into the plastic and have a really good grip, and then they give a surface that the paint can grip to. Because the primer isn't smooth, the paint can grip to it, and it means your paint will adhere much better, so that when you're playing your dudes on the tabletop and handling them and moving them around, that paint's not going to come straight off because it's gripping to the primer. It's just a way to prepare your plastic to receive the paint. Now, you do have many options. You can apply them via rattle can, or you can apply them by airbrush. If you've got an airbrush already, then you probably already know about airbrush primers, but go and look up Ultimate Primer. Is a really good one. If you're outside the UK, then you've got Ammo One Shot Primer, which is this stuff relabeled. It's really, really good. And you've also got Badger Steinal Res, which is again this stuff relabeled. Those three are three of the best airbrush primers you can find. They're just brilliant. So get Ultimate Primer, Badger Steinal Res, or Ammo One Shot Primer. They're all brilliant. They're easy to use. I'm not going to go into how to use them here because this is a kind of beginner's level. That's a bit more advanced. We're not going to show that on this one, but I have shown it on many of my other builds. If you don't want to get into an airbrush, you haven't got an airbrush, you've got a few options. Rattle cans are your best bet. Now you can get them from car places, you can get auto primers, there's lots of different primers available. You can get them from model making stores. If you're going to go for rattle cans, the best rattle can primer is Tamiya. Tamiya rattle can primers are fantastic. They're just really durable lacquer primers. They're really, really nice. You can go the Citadel route. I've got here Chaos Black. The one advantage to going the Citadel route, the price is massive. They're £10.40 a can. They're not cheap. However, if you've got a load of people that you want to paint Macragge blue, or a load of Death Guard that you want to paint Death Guard green, then it just so happens that as well as Chaos Black, their black primer, and lots of other colours, they also do a Macragge blue primer and a Death Guard primer, Death Guard green primer. So you could get yourself a can of Macragge blue primer, and instead of priming it and then painting it with the brush, you could just prime it that blue colour. instead of priming this, say black, and painting it with Death Guard green, you could just prime it Death Guard green. So there are advantages. It's very expensive, it's not cheap, but it saves you a lot of time. Alternatively, like I say, you've got Tamiya primers. They're really, really good. The Army Painter do some primers as well. Have a look in your local model store or your local online model supplier. They'll carry those. But there are also things like automotive primers, which for the most part are pretty good. They won't be as fine pigment-wise as model making primers are, so they may clog up some details. So if you can, stick to the Citadel ones or model making primers, just because model making primers are designed for lots of tiny little fine details. They're designed to be thin enough not to clog the details. Now, how do you actually apply a primer, a rattle can primer in this case? Well, like I said, I'm not going to show you airbrush primer because that's far too advanced for this video series. Rattle can primers I shall show you. Now, you have to do them outdoors. Every rattle can product should be done outdoors. Now, unfortunately, I primed these before I knew I was making this video series, and I don't have available any footage of priming with the rattle can because it's nasty weather outside now. So what I'm going to do instead, what follows is a little 3 or 4 minute video about how to apply rattle can matte varnish. Now it's exactly the same technique. So just imagine in the following video clip that every time I say matte varnish or varnish, what I'm saying is a primer, because it's the same technique, whether it's a matte varnish or a rattle can primer or even a rattle can paint. It's all the same process. It's the basic spraying process. So what follows is me doing matte varnish. Forget it's matte varnish, pretend I'm showing you how to spray primer. Now get your can of matte varnish, give it a darn good shake. Shake the living poop out of it. You want it to be really mixed. Yeah, I think it's mixed now. You could just get on with it, honestly. Now, don't press the button straight away. Press it away from the model, pan it across the model, and release the button. Again, press it away from the model, pan it past the model, and release the button. The reason to do that is that when you first press the button, you'll get blobs of stuff coming out as it's congealed in the nozzle, and you don't want that going on your model. This way you guarantee a steady flow. Let's go. Press, pan, release, press, pan, release, press. Sorry, I'm almost singing there. I do apologise. Now he's keeping it about, I'm talking in third person, it's me, you idiot. Keep it about 30 centimetres or so from the model. Go in light coats. Don't try and get everything at once, and don't hold the can in one place. If you don't think you've got enough, give it a little time to dry, and then come back and apply a second coat. But go in light coats. That way you avoid building up large amounts of varnish or top coat, and you avoid big blobs where it pools. So do a light coat, let it dry for 15-20 minutes depending on how long the drying time is for your varnish, and then have a look at it. If you think it needs more, just repeat the process. You can see here I'm doing the accessories on the sticks. Again, I'm keeping them about 18 to 20 to 30 centimetres per arm's length, and I'm doing the press, pan and release. I'm not pressing the nozzle pointing at the thing I'm spraying, because I want fine mist, not blebs, from the nozzle of the tin. It's kind of not very exciting to watch this, I know that. It's even less exciting for me to have watched it for the 6th time and to be narrating over it. But I make these sacrifices for you. Give it one last blast. Make sure to get it from all sides. Get it from above as well. Just giving it one last blast. I'll come back in about half an hour and give it more if I think it needs more. I will also come back and do the feet and underneath later on. Yeah, the fumes can get quite bad, that's why you do it outside. But we are job done. And there we have it. That is priming and building. As now you know why priming is important. So what we'll do, the next episode, we'll actually start with the project proper. We'll start with issues 1 to 4. Like I said, I'm still waiting for part 4 to arrive. It'll be my first subscription delivery. So we'll have a few more figures to do, but these are all the figures for parts 1 to 3. I'd done all this before I subscribed and before I knew I was going to be filming, so here they are. Anyway, at least you know now about building and priming. I won't need to show priming again, because I'll just say prime things. I may occasionally show building again, either as a quick time lapse just to make an episode more than, 2 minutes long, or just to show anything that's out of the ordinary that's not covered in what you've just seen. So hopefully that just gets you sorted. But until next time, thank you very much for watching. The next one will be parts 1 to 4. We'll get cracking with this month's build video, and then each month we'll have the next 4 issues. So until next time, as always, don't forget to go and pop into the Model Makers Boom Hut, the best online model making group in the universe. Everybody will love you. You'll get loads of help and advice, and everybody in there is fantastic. And it's my group, so you're always welcome. And don't forget, of course, if you'd like to support this channel, you are more than welcome to do so. Just visit patreon.com/modelmakingguru, and you can help pledge your support and keep this channel going. All support gratefully acknowledged and received. So thank you very much for watching. Take care of yourselves. I'll see you for the next one when we'll get some bits of painting done. And until next time, adios amoebas.